And we should be live, I hope. Can everybody see me? Can everybody hear me? Always have to check because I'm never convinced that it's going to work anytime I press the buttons. Never believe that it's going to work. Loud and clear. Perfect. Right, let's finish sending out all of the notifications. I'm waiting for Discord to do the automated one, but it doesn't seem to want to do it. So let's go ahead and do it myself. Thanos meme. Do. Welcome. Right, I'm pressing too many buttons. Right, that's what we want. We want to hit that. Send that. Send tweet. Perfect. Okay, clicking that. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Anto, coming to you live from the end of the world, and tonight we're going to carry on with some collaborative world building. We've been doing this for about a month now since we started doing this again, and it's a whole heap of fun, and it's really useful because I get to build out my next campaign world, or my campaign region, the Jewel Cities of Talavar. We've done a whole heap of work on this region already. I think there's something like 200 pins and locations on the map now, and we're going to add a whole bunch more. The focus for this evening is going to be to incorporate some horror and spooky elements, primarily through the use of the Pathfinder Dark Archive book. I got a copy of this, a PDF copy sent to me by Paizo recently, so we're going to flick through a little bit of this book and take some inspiration from that to give us some spooky locations to add to the Jewel Cities. Also this evening I will be doing a run through of my digital Dungeon Master screen within Legend Keeper. A lot of folks have been asking for that and wanted a video on it, so we're going to essentially record a YouTube video in like the middle of this live stream and kill two birds with one stone. While we are waiting for everyone to get their notifications and come in, say hello down in the chat. Down beneath the chat there, you're going to find a little gold icon, the gold crowns. These are channel points. You get them for watching the stream, and as you accumulate more, you can spend them on things, and you can use them to put monster lairs down on the map, to name NPCs and locations, and do a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So check those out and keep an eye on them as the stream goes on. But for now, say hello in the chat. Let's see who we've got in this evening while I take a sip of rapidly warming water. Welcome, William. Ahoy. I need to set my fan so it's just pointing straight at me because it's too hot. Welcome, Dave Johnson. Welcome. Right then, so let me make sure I have got everything perfectly set up so I know where everything is. So we have Legend Keeper open with our Jewel Cities map. You can see all the pins here. If I go ahead and zoom out and cluster them a little, you can see just how many we got. We got, what, 200 on the nod pins on this map so far in the last kind of 4 weeks or so. And then we've got Dark Archive open, and we're going to be perusing through that. Lord Catgear says aloha everyone. Aloha. Hyped to see that today's to see I'm completely brain melted there to see where today's evening will take us. Hopefully we're going to go some spooky places because we're going to be dipping through the Pathfinder Dark Archive, and hopefully we'll glean some spooky inspiration from that. I haven't read the whole thing fully. I read through most of the Thaumaturge class and kind of skimmed through a little bit of the other stuff. I wanted to save a lot of the juice for the stream, but I've been really enjoying what I've read so far. I'm really enjoying these Pathfinder kind of lore books, like the Book of the Dead and Secrets of Magic. They are packed with really cool kind of inspiration points for your world building, which I have really enjoyed. Unfamiliar with the Pathfinder system, what is this book exactly? So this book is kind of like Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. It's a horror and sort of spooky themed book. Introduces a couple of occult and horror sort of themed classes in the Psychic and the Thaumaturge. Thaumaturge is like a monster hunter who gets their power from talismans and kind of scraps of folklore and relics of occult materials. It's a super cool class. And then it's got a whole bunch of information on different occult related things. Then you put the ghost pirates, which fight the battles at Randall's Fall. Maybe give them more spooky approach. It's that kind of spooky horror. Yes, there are ghost pirates down in Fendral's Ruin. Let me just need to adjust my fan because it's making some truly awful noises that I can hear. I don't know if you can hear, but I can hear them and they're annoying me. No need to apologise. Ruin not Fall. It's quite alright. I mean, you remembered without having the map up, which is impressive enough to me. But yes, there are ghost ships and kind of spooky elements there that we might be able to pull some stuff from. In general, I'm thinking we'll probably start by looking at some of the cursed items. There's some really cool cursed stuff in here, and I always enjoy a good cursed item. I've already included a couple, one of which is a bagman from 5th edition. I don't believe the bagman actually has any stats, but in terms of concept, this creature that lives inside the bag of holding and then crawls out at night to murder its carrier, super cool. So I knew I wanted to include that somewhere. And then we got a whole bunch of monsters, some of which are tangentially horror themed. Some of them are overtly horror themed as well. So I think let's just dive in. Since I don't actually know any Pathfinder monsters, if I want to redeem a monster layer, can I give a general description of what I want to imagine rather than a specific monster? Absolutely. Or if there's a 5th edition monster that you want to suggest, that'll work too. A lot of the Pathfinder monsters are the same as the 5th edition monsters or super similar, and if not, I can go with kind of vibes. So absolutely. So let's dive in, and we're just going to jump straight to curses and pacts, and straight to cursed items, because that's really one I want to focus on immediately anyway. So you can see that this book comes with a whole bunch of cursed items, and I did make a note of one of them that I wanted to use, but I have no idea. Mistranslator's Draft, that's the one. I knew that. I've got Cursed Language Potion down here. So if we go here, we can see, I was reading through this the other day, and the Mistranslator's Draft, a pickled lizard's tongue tied in a knot floats in an oily potion. When you drink it, you can speak and understand all spoken but not written languages for 1 hour. However, if you attempt to translate any spoken language, your translation is always erroneous in a way likely to cause substantial confusion or anger, typically reducing the listener's attitude towards you by 1 step. You aren't aware of any error, and any attempt to correct the mistake only compounds it. Immediately when I read that, particularly the pickled lizard's tongue element, I thought of Eruxis, this area within the Jewel Cities that's home to a bunch of lizard folk. They're really kind of negative towards outsiders. They only have one public road that goes through their region. You're not allowed to deviate from that path, otherwise there's harsh penalties. And I thought there's definitely some scope for some unscrupulous character to sell the players some kind of cursed language potion, so to say, oh, you know, you'll be able to converse with the lizard folk easier and you'll have a better time of getting through here. But absolutely not. So we're going to go ahead and add a pin probably somewhere between Roses and the border. Roses already has kind of an establishment of sort of blockade runner style folk, a faction that helps people skip the toll through the Eruxis lands and helps them kind of avoid having to use that toll road. But I think that this is the perfect place for that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a page, and then we're going to use our standard or magic item icon to let us know that this is an area of a magic item. And then we're going to grab Mistranslator's Draft. That is all caps. We don't want all caps, that's a little aggressive. Mistranslator's Draft. And that's a level 9 item, so we want to make a note that it's a level 9 mistranslations. Tor's Draft. And we'll go ahead and hide that page, and then we'll go ahead and hide that pin, and boom, that's our first cursed item added. So thinking somewhere on the road between Roses and the start of the toll road, if the players arrive there and they're of an appropriate level, I mean, I could level it down, I suppose, but if they arrive and they're of appropriate level, someone can offer to sell them this language translation potion, and then when they first encounter some lizard folk and try to use it, it's only going to cause kind of confusion and insult, and that'll be a really fun social encounter to go through. Bob says, I used the cursed item along with the ghost pirate. If they take items from his treasure, he will hunt them down to reclaim it. He will go for the ones who stole the item, and any who they give sell the item to. The only way to stop him is to return the item back to his ship or trove and add to it. We love some Pirates of the Caribbean style cursed gold. I think I have some cursed gold noted down somewhere. I want to say it's over here somewhere. There we go, cursed gold. A pouch containing a large sum of gold relative to the party's wealth lies discarded on the ground, not on the group. If the group take them and spend them, they enact a curse, and we can probably think of some kind of curse for this. What map software is this? This map was made in Incarnate, and the software for the pins is Legend Keeper. As it returns every 1d4 days, it can occur anytime and even in the middle of a fight. That is pretty. I like having a randomly occurring monster or villain or adversary that can kind of appear at any time. Those can be fun. So let's have a look in the curses and see whether we can see anything. So these are cursed items. I wonder whether there are any new curses. Tempting curses. This sounds perfect. Thief's Burden. This ward is placed on valuables, aims to bog down thieves and prevent them from thieving. Causes stolen items to weigh you down. I don't like that. It's not super evocative. Forbidden Knowledge, Smarming Words, Sinful Tongue, Boastful Prince's Scourge. Features slowly morph into that of a frog who grow a prominent vocal sac. You can amphibious trait and can breathe both air and water. That's pretty cool. And then they've got the Thaumaturge as a frog. I love that. Not for this cursed gold, but I do like that. I think I'll check out some of the basic curses. I think there are some Pathfinder curses. They might even be on the Archives of Nethys. Let's go PF2 curses and see what we get. Curses, Archives of Nethys. Cool. So these are the curses in the Game Mastery Guide. We've got Grave Curse. A grave curse punishes you from stealing from a tomb, possibly. Theft of Thought. Single book. Slayer's Haunt. Coward's Roots. That could be one. Potent Poison. The Ravenous. Wizard Ward. Flesh. Fury. Slumber. Earth. I'm just going off the names to see if anything jumps out. Thief's Retribution. Okay, punishment causes you to lose something dear whenever you rob or steal. That's not really the vibe we're going for there. Further looking will be needed for the cursed gold, I think. But let's jump back into cursed items and see what else we've got. So all of these are quite high level. So I want to have a look and see where we can go with lower level stuff. I've lost my tab. Tablet of Chained Souls. Half-formed, unreadable runes drift across this weathered stone tablet, which resembles a tombstone. Too eroded to be legible. Yada yada yada. Interact it. You present the tablet to a ghost or lay it on a haunted ship. The tablet's words resolve into a cryptic but accurate clue about the unfinished business that keeps the spirit from rest. That could be kind of useful. Rose of Love's Lost. Bob says Nightmare Curse. Let's have a look at Nightmare Curse. Where is Nightmare? Feast for Retribution. Nightmare Curse. Nightmare Curse. Curse of the Nightmares. You must rest for 12 hours instead of 8 to avoid becoming fatigued and can't gain any benefits from resting or long-term rest. You can still make your daily preparations. Curse 2. Perfect. That's a nice general curse. Curse plagues you with terrible nightmares wherever you sleep, preventing you from resting properly. Let's go ahead and make just a quick note. Possibly the Curse of Nightmares. Relating to the origins of the gold. I love gold. Right then. So, let's have a look. Telltale's Ring. Smiling faces are inscribed about this silver band. You become a fluent weaver of fictions. +2 bonus on deception checks to lie. Whenever you're under suspicion or being questioned by an authority figure, you find yourself compulsively spinning absurd tall tales that are so unconvincing they make you look guilty. that's pretty funny. I quite like that. I feel like that is something that belongs in a city and would be ideal for kind of city play. So let's zoom out and see where we think we've got some gaps. We've got some gaps right here in some of these unnamed cities. So we're going to go ahead and drop that in. So it is the Telltale's Ring. So let's go ahead and change our icons so that we know that it is treasure, magic items. Completely lost the word for it. Telltale's Ring. And that is a level 8 item. A level 9 item. Level 9. That's fine. Go ahead and hide that page and hide that pin. Cool. So we'll go ahead and see if there's anything else we can get from here. Okay. Let's have a looky-loo. Gift of the Poisoned Heart. Those are all quite high. Calamity Glass. Really cool name. Once per week. Damn. Obtain a vision related to a likely action or event in the next 48 hours. Decides the vision to show you think about a specific event. No matter what, the mirror shows only tragedies. The mirror's visions are accurate but misleading as they direct tragedies that could be averted, but in doing so might lead to greater suffering. For example, Calamity Glass might show a family starving as a result of a harbour officials turning away a boatload of improperly documented grain, yada yada yada. Didn't show the grain was improperly labelled and carelessly stored. Contamination, killing hundreds. I quite like that. That Calamity Glass could be the onus for an entire adventure. And I think that we probably should come up with some kind of icon for specific adventure ideas. You can see I've got a whole bunch of icons on the screen and on the pins, and most of them mean things. So we should probably make some kind of Calamity Glass. So let's go ahead and drop it in Pearl. Create a new page, and then we'll make it an icon for a magic item, and then because it is a magic item, Calamity Glass, and that's level 11. So I, wherever possible, try to put the level for appropriate items and for monsters and anything like that. Anything where a given level is given, I try to put that in my pin, because then when I bring up the right hand side here and click on map, and it gives me the list of pins on this map, I can get a look at the levels and go, right, okay, I'll just scan through here and see if there's something available for that level. Oh, here is a level 5 thing, so I'll click on it and it'll take me to that area of the map, and I'll be able to know where the level appropriate content is at any point. So we go ahead and hide that pin. Is the page hidden? Yes. So we want to give it an info, and then we give it a secret. And we're just gonna copy this example because this example is pretty good. So we're just gonna go and copy the whole example and leave that as a secret there, and that's another item added. Stone of Weight, item 2, cursed item. PF2, Stone of Weight. Let's have a look. A lodestone. This rings a bell. Also known as lodestone, this small stone appears non-magical and has a lovely sheen, giving the impression that it could be valuable or notable item or a magic stone of some kind. When you've carried the stone on your person for 1 minute, curse activates. Its size does not change, but it suddenly increases in weight to 5 bulk. Additional weight does not cause the stone to deal more damage if thrown or used as a weapon. Reappears in your possession within 1 minute if you have discarded it, and can't be destroyed or thrown away permanently, or even placed in a container that would reduce or negate its bulk until subject to a remove curse spell. That's pretty funny. I feel like that is ideal for putting in a dungeon. So let's go ahead, and you can see we've got some ancient tombs on the side here. So we're just going to click on one of them, and then we're going to go ahead and add that stone. It's called Stone of Weight. Stone of Weight. Item level 2. Hide that page. And then we are just going to copy the whole thing. And we're going to go info and secret. Place that in the secret. Close that. Make sure that our pins are nice and tight together so I know that they are in the same location, and then hide the pin, and that's another one done. So let's see what else. I don't think there's any other cursed items that are jumping out of me in terms of the Dark Archive stuff, purely because they're quite high level. And I don't want to start with too much high level stuff on the map because I'm going to be starting at level 1. So let's just have a quick scan. Tempting curses. There's a curse for Thief's Burden. You place a ward, bring down thieves. This curse causes stolen items to weigh you down. While the curse is in effect, you treat any stolen item you carry as 1 bulk heavier. This increase in bulk. Tempted curse. Your pockets weigh you down as you dream of filling them with riches. You are encumbered, but you double your total maximum carrying capacity. Incorporating that could be quite cool. I think it might conflict with Cursed Gold, which is a level 2 item. Make a note of that. So let's jump back to the cover and have another look through the table of contents and see whether anything jumps out. So the basic premise to the book in terms of its structure is it starts out with the Archivist's training manual that gives you your Psychic and Thaumaturge classes, as well as the archetypes for those, multi-classing into them essentially. And then you get the stolen case files. These are a bunch of different chapters on different types of horror and occult and spooky stuff, and then each one of them has a little one-shot or couple-shot adventure kind of tacked on to them, which is really nice. It's an interesting way to deliver the information about these different elements of world building and package them up into a small little adventure that's purely focused on some of those things. So having a secret society and then having a small adventure based on a secret society. You can see they're only sort of 6-7 pages long, the adventures, so not very long at all. Probably run them in a session or two, but it's nice to give you a point of inspiration for using the kind of content that's in this book. So actually I think we'll start with secret societies because we like secret societies. So there's some information on the nature of conspiracy. We've got some skill feats for occultists, and we've got information for a secret society member. So let's go ahead and just have a look at this. So this is an adjustment profile, lets you make an NPC into a member of a secret society. So some of their abilities include being able to get out of jail, being able to, whenever you reduce to 0 hit points, someone's there to pull you away. That's pretty cool. You've got prepared diversions, prepared traps. So let's go ahead and see whether or not we can think of, let's make a secret society. No Lepo, welcome. We're just about to start making a secret society. So we're going to take some inspiration from the Secret Society section in the Dark Archive book, the Pathfinder 2nd edition book, and we're going to think about some kind of secret society. So we're going to start off, I'm going to load up the compendium and jump over to factions, and we're going to create a new page from template, a new faction, and we're just going to call this Secret Society for now. Again, we're going to hide this and we're going to create it. And once that's loaded up, you can see I've got one of my Legend Keeper templates here that gives us our different inputs, our different headings to use. So let's go ahead and just start making notes. So this is some kind of secret society. So let's start off with what's the goal for the group. That's a great place to start. We can start in motivations and goals. So when we think about secret societies, obviously they're secret. That goes without saying, but it helps contextualize what we're doing. So why are they secret? Do they want something that is illegal? That could tend to take them in a more culty direction if there's a kind of religious or faith aspect in it, but it tends to be they want something illegal or some kind of illegal change, or there's some behind the scenes kind of string pulling. So in terms of motivation and goals, a top level, most of them want change in some format. That might be change to the law, change in leadership, change in the status quo, change in some way. So we start super top level because we know nothing about this group, and we'll say that they want change. So we probably want to figure out where in the world this society is, because that will probably help us get a sense of kind of who they are as people, what they want, because we'll have a little bit of knowledge about who they are. So if I zoom out here a little and just hide that sidebar. So presently we've got a couple of different regions established within the dual cities already. So over here on the west we've got the Dusk Empire. That is a very imperial region, the remnants of an empire that once stretched almost the entire way across Talabar and almost united the entire continent under conquest. The emperor of that empire, the subjugator, was murdered by his wife, and now she rules what is a fraction of the empire. Then we have Ealdal, which is very noble, questing knights, kind of classic Western medieval Europe vibes. We have Eruxis, which is the lizard folk region, lots of forest, lots of nature focus, very insular, don't really have a lot of interaction with the outside world. Then up here we have the Vale, which is very well defended geographically, and they worship the goddess of love and kindness, and they believe that their queen is kind of the physical embodiment of that goddess on the material plane. And then the most recent addition to the map is House Delacroix, or Delacroix. This is a super small region, has only existed for a few years, maybe sort of 15 years. They won their independence from whatever will end up being the larger region around this area, and I've been doing a fair amount of work on this region, so that could be somewhere to do it, because I've established quite a lot of this stuff around here already. How about closing the main river between the island and the mainland? Remembering correctly, the gods slashed it, right? Maybe they've seen that as some kind of affront to their own belief and want to reshape the region back to how it was. That is big thinking. So yeah, the legend of the cut, which is this strait of water, is that the gods cut the island of Or from the continent of Talabar. Obviously, I mean, I say obviously, but maybe not obviously. I was about to say, obviously that's not what happened, it's just base erosion, but maybe it's not obvious. Maybe a god really did cut the island of Or away from Talabar. Bob says they want to remove the Empress. Removing the Empress is classic secret society stuff. So yeah, some kind of secret society in the Dusk Empire. So let's go ahead. I'm going to sit down because things are getting serious. So it's time to be sat. Now let's lower the desk a little so that we can see properly. And then we want to go back to this page and right, okay, so this secret society is going to be based in the Dusk Empire. It's going to be focused on kind of removing the Empress, and I think that one of the ways that we can do that is by drawing on the past and thinking about the Subjugator. So the Subjugator was the former emperor. It's under his rule that the Dusk Empire kind of moved west and conquered pretty much all of Talabar. And I'm thinking that the reason that failed is presently in my current campaign, the players are dealing with kind of an apocalypse where all this chaos magic has been released. Thinking that the Subjugator, the former emperor, has tapped into this in some way so that if my current campaign, if the players are successful and they kind of stop this chaos and put a lid back on it, that takes away some of his powers, and in that vital moment his wife kind of stabs him in the back, takes control of the empire, flees back east towards the Jewel Cities. So a secret society could well be focused on removing the Betrayer Queen from power in the Dusk Empire and in some way reinstating the Subjugator. So let's go ahead and grab the secret society. So their motivations and goals are going to be remove the Betrayer Queen in the Dusk Empire and resurrect the Subjugator. I say resurrect because I don't actually know what has happened to the Subjugator, so we'll keep it loosey-goosey for now. Let's go ahead and we want to go back to the Jewel Cities because I want to be able to look at them both. So actually we're gonna link to an existing thing and we're gonna pull up the page for the Secret Society directly onto our map. That won't be where it lives in the end, but I just want to be able to see it so that we can see the map and see the geography and the location while we're world building. So we're going to have key NPCs. Someone in these key NPCs needs to be in the court of the Betrayer Queen. So then we want this secret society to go all the way to the top. In terms of their operating location, that's going to be the Dusk Empire. In terms of their leader, we don't know that yet. The faction alignment is going to be some kind of evil. We'll probably go lawful evil, maybe tending towards neutral. I feel like lawful evil probably fits with reinstating what they believe to be their true emperor. In terms of their location, the strong candidate would be Last Watch, which is the city furthest away from the tower, which is where the Empress is based, and that would be a strong contender for where to put the secret society because it's far away. But then you also would want it close for the purposes of kind of interacting. So maybe we can have them in Cole. So we'll go ahead and we'll drag this down to Cole, which is kind of the southernmost city on the mainland, close to the Unclaimed Lands. Bob Turpin has redeemed an NPC, Shabs Ibn Peter. I assume that's a Peter. So we'll drop that as one of the NPCs and figure out who they could be. They could be the person in the court. They could be someone else as well. So let's go ahead, and their HQ location is going to be in the city of Cole, which is there, I believe. Yes. Took names from the Assassin's Creed voice actors, just changed the letter. Yeah, that's it. I do that as well. If I want to evoke some elements like that, taking the actor that plays a character that you want this particular NPC to kind of embody, always a really good idea. I did that with an entire village of people and the plot of the movie Hot Fuzz in my very first campaign. I had all the NPCs named after amalgamation of the actors' names, and we essentially played out the plot of Hot Fuzz, but in D&D it was a lot of fun. So in terms of enemies, obviously the Dusk Empire is going to be their principal enemy. I think that we're probably also going to want one of the good factions to be their enemy, because they don't want the subjugator being brought back. But we maybe the Order of the Silver Gauntlet, that would make sense. Lord Katga said, Lord Katga Redwood, happy to be a pawn for the potential revival of the former leader for my folk and getting rid of the imposter queen. Perfect. Perfect use of the redeem an NPC. Lord Katga Redwood. And I think if we're based in Cole, it only makes sense for that to be kind of the baron of that city. So the ruler. So we'll go Baron Katga, because I don't know why Baron always sounds more nefarious to me than Lord. Lord sounds more good, and Baron sounds more evil. So we'll go Baron Katga Redwood. In the court, the betrayer queen, leader of the city of Cole. Okay, let's go ahead and mark a couple of those redeems as redeemed, otherwise I will completely forget. So manage reward requests, name an NPC, mark as complete, mark as complete. If I don't do it when it happens, I completely forget that it exists. Baron von Klinkerhoffen. Yeah, just something about barons, you know? They have an inherently kind of sus vibe. But no, I think that's a solid start. So we've got this secret society operating out of Cole, which is one of the closer cities to the tower. It'll be an important part of kind of trade and an important military location, so it's a good kind of strong position for this society to operate out of. Heatwave says, for me it's Countess that does the sus vibe. Yeah, Count is another one. Like a lot of kind of noble titles have got real sus vibes if you stop and think about them, just because they're sus people, clearly. So who can their allies be? So potentially someone or a tribe within the Unclaimed Lands. If the Empire is currently kind of pushing into the Unclaimed Lands, potentially we could have some of their allies be former enemies of the Empire. So from further west into Talavar. Merchant Guild, the Empress raised the taxes, possibly. Lord Vader does the same for Lord. Yeah, actually, yeah. Just any title. Any title that gives you power makes you evil. That's the conclusion we're coming to here. Heatwave, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate it. The Merchant Guild Empress raised the taxes. Some kind disgruntled folk who had their taxes raised. Possible further disgruntled folk who had their taxes raised. I think that this secret society, that would be much more of a pawn in that sense, because this group wants to reinstate the subjugator in whatever capacity that manifests, whether it be some kind of resurrection or whether it be freeing him from imprisonment. I don't exactly know what the deal with the subjugator is, but they want the subjugator back, and the subjugator is a bad dude, real bad, like invincible overlord, evil level of individual. And that's kind of a counterpoint for the Desk Empire. Is we want this empire to be, on the face of it, like super evil, clad in black armor, deploying heinous tactics in their history, built on an empire of subjugation. But we want that flip point of, even though the Betrayer Queen is evil, undoubtedly so, she's a lesser evil, and she may have saved the continent from a worse fate by kind of turning on her husband and stealing his empire. For allies or pawns, the cities which are far away and want to do their own thing or claim an independence they support from shadows steer to upset the loyalist. Absolutely. Last Watch could absolutely be an ally. Promised independence. That's not how you spell independence. Could they have a necromancer to revive him though they forget the necromancer will still be in control? Possibly. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure what the deal with the subjugator is. I haven't fully committed. All I know is that kind of the height of his power, a pivotal moment of a great battle, kind of the battle to end the war, to control the continent. Something happened, the Betrayer Queen betrayed him. I'm thinking there's probably going to be some true name stuff involved there. And then that caused them to lose the battle, and the Empires had to flee back east. And the way I'm going to present that to the players is they're going to get the option to start as Empire Legionnaires, and they will start basically in that battle, on the forced retreat in that battle. But I have made a note this week up here, not necessarily final location, but for a magic item called the Subjugator's Judgment, which is based on the Blade of the Black Sovereign, which is a piece of Pathfinder 2nd edition equipment, but reflavored a little bit to be this great and terrible weapon. So a plot hook for them absolutely could be recovering the Subjugator's legendary sword, the Subjugator's Judgment. Let's go ahead actually and find out what level item this is. This is a level 15 item. I've already noted it down. Go past me. So let's click here on the Secret Society and our plot hooks. Recover the legendary sword, Subjugator's Judgment. So that could be an option. There is need for the group to infiltrate the military. Absolutely. They'll probably be within the military. They would have people at kind of multiple levels. So the Baron of Cole would probably be fairly high up, being a leader of a city within the Empire. Probably have someone in the tower. We'll mention this as possibly in the tower, because the tower is currently where the Betrayer Queen resides, and she's kind of holding up in this location. It is a particularly stereotypical evil overlord location because it was built by her husband and built to be kind of a manifestation of his subjugation and the physical embodiment of that. So she's currently hidden there. Having someone within the tower could definitely work. A Lord Commander in the Northern Army definitely could have some kind of officer in the Northern armies. for sure. I'm thinking if we scroll up here, we've got all of this region kind of bordering onto the desert. Lord Kaga, thank you very much for the sub. Where we've got some military encampments, we've got a border military encampment of the Empire here, so this could be where that officer is based. Makes me think of the raid as the way things will go when they infiltrate the tower. Quite possibly. The tower would be a pivotal point of a war against the Empire for sure. And you can see here that beyond the tower is the Plain of Sorrows, so this is a stretch of land that has almost nothing in it. It's not really farmed, it's just miles of barren landscape with the tower at the center of it and the little city that's built around the tower, so that they can see for miles and miles from the tower, and to make it so that if you wanted to assault the tower, you have absolutely no cover as you approach it. And then on the Plain of Sorrows there is a menhir. I believe it's the Stone of Resolve. So there's a menhir, a statue, kind of pillar of rock out on the plain somewhere, and if you kind of interact with it, you get +1 to your saves against fear effects for 24 hours. So back to our secret society. So we need a name. So something to do with bringing back the subjugator. So possibly the Resurrectionists. Resurrectionists. How do I spell that? It's not telling me it's not. So if it is a case of the subjugator is dead and they want to bring him back, then they would be Resurrectionists. Blade of Freedom, that feels a little bit too good for what these people want to do. These people are unequivocally evil. They want to bring back one of the most terrible tyrants that this continent has ever seen. So they are 100% evil. Would that mean the tower has a large force of mages so they can bombard enemy forces in a large open area? It absolutely would. So the tower would have mages and siege equipment, a military garrison within it, and then it is built with the sole purpose of being a nightmare to besiege. So it would be layer after layer of protections, both magical and physical, to really disincentivize besieging it. Just because they're evil doesn't mean they think themselves as evil. That's a really good point. That is a really good point. You've stumped me now. I don't think the Blade of Freedom works purely because he was known as the subjugator. It's hard to conflate freedom and subjugation, but them not thinking of themselves as evil is a very true point that I'd immediately overlooked. And the name can sound good if possible. That is absolutely something they could do. For now, I'm just going to put Resurrectionist so I know so it kind of delivers what their goal is in its name. If they're going to think they're good, then they're motivated. Yeah. A group focused on restoring the subjugator. The one true path, believing the ways of their former leader and the way the empire should be run, and not that the imposter queen wants to do with that. The obedient, it can be seen as good, but in the context it's clearly bad, and they call the supporters of the queen the usurpers or something like that. Obedience, truth, the way of obedience. Just throwing all the words together in my brain and see if anything sticks. Because you also, when naming factions, an important thing to think about is how people refer to them. So if they were called the way of the true path was the faction name, what would be the collective noun for a group of members of the true path? You need a name that you can collectively noun to call them. Resurrectionists is easy, you're just resurrectionists. Or like usurpers, those kind of collective nouns. Why not make the good sword have an anagram name that translates into something that's truly evil? Possibly. Anagrams are always fun. Let's go ahead and make some notes. Order of Obedience. The Order of Obedience is pretty good. and then their collective noun. That's yeah, Order of Obedience, and then their collective noun could just be resurrectionists. That's actually that's not a bad shout. The Order of Obedience. That's not how you spell it. There we go. Referred to as resurrectionists. Obedient swords like to see themselves as the loyal fighters and believers of his return. You could search for synonyms of subjugator and see what that offers. The god swords, the dark swords. Yeah, just the pup swords, the sword pups. I like that. We could definitely incorporate some synonyms of subjugator into kind of their doctrines. So if we go in notes here, something to do with dominance in their doctrine or motto, because obviously dominator, subjugator, to subjugate, to dominate, have something to do with dominance in their doctrine. Although the risk with having something to do with dominance and domination in their motto is it could very quickly take on the tone of a very different kind of secret group. Down with the queen or down with my head. We're still doing names for the society or names for Star Destroyers. Oh my god. Star Destroyers would be a great place to go to mine some names. The name Star Destroyers, name Star Wars ships are always pretty cool. Hey, don't shame them. Maybe they're also into that type of secrecy. Oh, there's no shame. Just if my mind went there so very quickly, that's definitely where other people would go, and I'm not changing it. You know, something to do with dominance is going to be in their motto, and you know they're part of the Empire, so they're all in black already. Just make it black leather, and job's done. But that's cool. I think we can leave the Order of Obedience there. I'm going to go ahead and make a note in here, HQ of the Order of Obedience. There it is. In the entry for coal, just so we know that's there, and then we can get rid of that pin, because I don't tend to pin factions to Legend Keeper, or to the map anyway. Question: how does the Queen rule? For what kind of laws does she stand for? I don't know. Yeah. So in my mind, she's very new to the kind of solo rule. As I said, she betrayed the subjugator and kind of took over the Empire. So the way I'm picturing it is that very much she is grasping at straws and trying to hold on to the power and keep the Empire together at this point. She's not really established herself and is in quite a weak position in terms of the Empire is very fragile because their emperor is dead and they have a new queen who killed him, and she's trying to hold it all together. So I don't imagine that she's necessarily standing for anything that isn't my husband was pure evil and I'm slightly less so. Vanquisher is a synonym. Vanquisher is like a cool word. So that's our secret society. Yeah, we're coming up on an hour. We'll take a break for a minute, I think. I'll run an ad for like 90 seconds. And then when we come back, I'll give you a run through of how I lay out the pins on my map and what all the colors and stuff mean, because I know that's something that people have been interested in, how I kind of color code and visually denote things on the map. And then we'll talk about my gem screen. So let me go ahead and press the buttons here and run an ad. See you in like 90 seconds. And we should be back. I assume that for most of you the ad will have ended by now. Nolep says it'd be nice if the leader of the group was a former head of the Royal Guard that failed to protect the Emperor. That would be super cool. Definitely can make a note of that, actually. Order of obedience. Command structure. Leader was a member of the Royal Guard. Who failed to protect the Emperor. Cool. Okay, so we should be back. Right. So a lot of people have been asking me to go over my Legend Keeper DM screen. So I figure we will go over that real quick. I'll walk you through how I've got all that set up and we can take a look at it. So let me switch over to my desk view here. And here you can see I have my DM screen. Now this is built using one of the boards in Legend Keeper. So when you make a page, you have the option to make it as a wiki page, as a map, or as a board. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that is working, which it is. And you can see that I have my DM screen. Now, all of these are linked to different articles that I have set up and nested underneath my DM screen. So you can see here all of the actual source articles. And the way that I use this is during the session, I will just click on any item that I need to and just have a look at it. So if I wanted conditions, I click on that and I'll get my conditions. Let's go back to the screen so that it works normally when let me go ahead and lock the page. There we go. That's how, normally I have it locked. So when it's locked and you click on them, instead of going through to the main page, it brings up this sidebar and you can see what they have in each of those wiki pages. And I break it down into a couple different ways. I have a combat area, a downtime area, a GM section, and then down here is just my player section. This gets updated much less frequently because I always forget about it. But we'll start through and I'll just run through a couple of them real quick. So in combat, like I said, I have conditions and states. That just lets me remember what the rules for conditions are. Then have the rules for cover. I have what the actions are in combat. I don't use this a whole heap, but this was really useful when I was learning 5th edition. I have notes on what the different potions of healing do, because I'm always forgetting how much healing they give. I have rules for grappling and shoveling and climbing on creatures, rules for movement, and rules for sizing. And those are the things that I find that I most commonly need to refer to in combat situations. Then in downtime, I have a page that has some food and drink and living expenses, different information on narcotics, different weapons, the prices for different services. This one is really useful for figuring out things like the cost of a coach cab, or the postage cost, or the travel time between different places. Then I have a whole bunch of rules on gambling and games of chance, information on armor, drinking, the leveling up system, and then information on magic items. And then in the GM section, this is where I keep some of my more nebulous non-combat and non-session related stuff. So probably the most useful things in the GM section are the list of names. I have the lists of names from Xanathar's Guide, I believe, set up. So if I need a tiefling name, I can click it and I get all of those options. I can choose one of them, delete it out of the list, and carry on, and it doesn't slow the game down. And then I also have these two, the quick monster builder and the quick NPC builder. These are probably the most useful things when it comes to on-the-fly kind of generation. So with the quick monster builder, it's just a table that gives me the proficiency bonus and standard armor class hit points and attack bonuses and DCs and stuff for a monster of each level, which means that if I want to deploy a monster against the party and I need to quickly adjust its stats, let's say that I have a level 5 monster going against a level 9 party and I want to bump up its stats a little bit, I can look at this table and go, right, okay, here's the information that I need, and adjust its stats accordingly. It won't be perfect, but it gets me closer to the intended CR, not that CR is worth anything, than it otherwise would. And then same with an NPC builder. This is based on my actual physical DM screen. I have a printout of this on my physical DM screen. I just grabbed an image of it. It's just a D20 list, and you just roll 6 D20 and choose an option for an NPC. So let's say your players are coming towards a town and they say, right, I want to go and speak to this guard. Who is this guard? And you have nothing. You can just pull up a list of traits, including what race or ancestry they are, their physical traits, whether they have any voice differences, what they're motivated by, and what they fear, just so you've got a really kind of core of who this character is really quickly. And I found this to be incredibly useful for making those kind of incidental NPCs that your players encounter on the fly. I do sometimes use it to build more in-depth piece like NPCs, but I tend to use more information than just this, but this is great for incidental NPCs. And then I also have my bounded accuracy tables. So these are old school style tables that tell you what the percentage to hit is based on the attack bonus and the AC of a target. This is really useful when you're changing stats on the fly. Again, kind of like the quick monster builder, because of the way bounded accuracy works and the way 5th edition works, sometimes you'll find that there is just no point in making an attack against the creature because you're just not going to hit it enough. So this shows me, right, okay, the player's average AC is 20. So I know if I want something to hit it more than 50% of the time, that thing needs at least a +10 bonus to hit. It's really useful for building monsters on the fly, for tweaking monster stats, and for being able to make those lower level monsters feel like they're hitting a little bit harder without increasing their damage or giving them a bunch of crazy abilities. You just up there to hit a little bit, make them hit a little bit more frequently, and it makes them more of a threat, but not dangerously so. And then finally at the bottom I have kind of my player section. This is just my calendar, my most recent adventure, which is not my most recent adventure, but it's got information on my most recent adventure, and I'll pull that up to be able to see what we're doing this week. Pull up information on my actual calendar if I want to be able to see the whole year at a glance, or I'll pull up the specific year that they're in, because I track all of the time within tables like this. So I'll say, right, okay, on the 6th of Fortis, they were in Kadim, they left Kadim to go to the Tower of Shattered Time. That helps me track their movement across time and how long it takes them to do things in relation to other stuff. Then I have a link to my page for where I keep track of all my adventures, and then my campaign planning page. This is where I go and just say, right, what's the big picture at the moment? So you can see this is a little bit out of date now, so I'll put the adventure numbers, what the main plot is, a couple of B and C plots, how those are progressing, what I expect the players to find out about those different things, and then some information on where things are going. So what are the arcs that I've got coming up, where are some of the villains. That helps me just plan things for 3 or 4 or 5 adventures down the road. And then I have links to all of my player information, so that's the players' specific pages. They use them, they keep journals in them, they keep notes, and it allows me to get access to some quick information. I have secret nodes on each of those pages that gives me some key information about them, and it lets me access them really quickly. Everything's all color coded using the little color coding icon bit down here. Tool would be the word, and it's all boxed up, and I found this to be really useful. I'm not honestly a big user of digital DM screens, kind of the traditional ones where you get a website for them. I've never really found one that did what I wanted. I built one in OneNote as part of my DM Bible that worked pretty well. Similar idea to this, kind of 3 columns, a lot of collapsing information. But this one presents it in a much nicer looking format, and I can access that information really quickly without clogging up the whole page. So the software that I use, double pressed, is Legend Keeper. I have just made a video, kind of overview of the software this last Friday, which is linked in that comment as well. So that's my DM screen and the process I use to kind of track my DM style info at the table. hopefully that was useful for you. And yeah, I'll cut this out and put it into an actual video on YouTube so people can use it too. And if you're watching this section on YouTube, that's right, I'm just going to do the whole YouTube segment within the stream rather than doing it after the fact. If you're watching on YouTube, come and follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Icarus Games UK, because we do collaborative world building every Sunday night, and it's a lot of fun, so come and follow. And then we'll jump back over to the Jewel Cities, and I'll go over kind of how I format my pins, because I know that's something that people have wanted to know about, how I structure my map to get the most out of it. So let's zoom in here and give you a better look. So you can see I've got a bunch of different icons. All of them are different colors. All of them have different icons on them. And they all mean a bunch of different stuff. So let's just go through them and show how I use them. They're mainly so that when I am looking at a map and the players, let's say the players are in the city of Mornburg, and they're on their way to Kaya, I can look and really quickly get a glance and see, right, what kind of content are they going to pass on their way to it. So let's zoom in here, and we're going to start at the highest level. Actually, no, we need to zoom out if we're starting at the highest level, and then we zoom in. Callie says, you got me to give Pathfinder 2nd Edition a look as a result of the world building over the last few weeks. Thanks for that. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoy it. I've been enjoying reading through it immensely. It scratches the kind of itch from what I want from a game, something with more structured mechanics, so that I don't have to spend ages looking for sage advice articles when there's a problem, which there often is. But I've really been enjoying reading it, and I'm super excited to start playing this Jewel Cities campaign, even though it's still several months away, probably. So, going over the pins. Starting highest level, you can see I have these black flag pins. Those are wide locations on my map. So if I jump out to my world view, you can see almost all of these pins on the world view are these black globe flags. They are an indication that this is a nation, this is a larger region, or something on that grand scale. So I have one for the Jewel Cities, and when I click through to it, that brings us to our Jewel Cities map. Then I have another one for the Island of Ore, because that is the name for this whole area, and then this entire map is the Jewel Cities. Going down a level, we get to the little black banner globe icons. Those represent nations or regions within a larger area. So for the Jewel Cities, it's nations like the Vale, Iruxis, Ealdal, the House Delacroix, and the Desk Empire. Those are the icons I use to keep information about that broad region. So if we click on Ealdal, that has kind of my hook from the setting guide, which is what the players will see. This is the really high level information you get for this region. And then it also has some wiki style information. So what's the general alignment? What's the capital? Who's the ruler? What kind of system of government do they have? All those kind of things. And then I also have a bunch of secrets, including what the danger level for this general region is, whether there are magic items for sale. This tends to be more of a location, like smaller location specific, but I use one template for it all. And then I have plot hooks and knowledge DCs, so something that I've started doing. If we go ahead and click on one of them, maybe the Empire. Yeah, the Empire. So in plot hooks, if the players were to roll a knowledge check and get 40 on their roll, this is Pathfinder 2nd Edition, remember, so the numbers are a lot higher, they would know that the subjugator was obsessed with ancient technologies and was believed to be building an empire to stand against the greater darkness. Don't know what any of that means, but that's a rumor or a plot hook that they would get if they rolled high enough. And my intention is for each of these regions to have these knowledge tables built out ahead of time to really speed it up when I get to running the campaign and the players say, right, okay, what do we know about the nation of Ealdal? And I can open it up and I can look at the table and be like, right, make a knowledge check. and then read the results from it, basically. And then I have a section for notes and key NPCs. That's pretty standard for all of my locations. Moving down a level. Oh, well, before we move down a level, Bob, we will put that ossature in just a moment. And Callie says, I think my campaign would suit Pathfinder 2nd Edition a lot more than 5e, given the changes to things I'm making. A lot of the stuff I was going to save to scratch build, Paizo already has in the bestiaries. That's kind of what was the turning point for me. So I found myself homebrewing a whole bunch of different little things in 5th edition. None of them are particularly game breaking or monumental on their own, but when you've got like a dozen or more little things that you're doing to fix the system, it's worthwhile going, is there a system that actually does what I want from this better? Because I clearly am not getting everything I want from this system because I'm putting so much homebrew on it. So I went and had a look at Pathfinder, and it ticked all of my boxes. Pretty much everything, all the problems I had, all of the little homebrews that I was doing, Pathfinder includes natively, which is really nice. So back to our pins. Going down the next level, we'll keep it kind of location specific. The next location we have from region is city. So you can see here these purple banner icons with the little signposts. Those are cities. And the cities are notable because they are much bigger than other regions or other locations, and they are more powerful, etc., etc. A city is a city. I just hit my arm on my desk. And those are all purple, so that means as I zoom in, I can get a sense of how many cities there are. Where the cities are is also a really important thing, because when you're world building on kind of a big, kind of close to continent scale, you can have really big gaps, and sometimes you'll look at a really big gap and you go, do I need a city there? Is there a reason a city will have sprung up here? At the moment, you'll see on the island of Orr, a lot of the inland doesn't have cities, but that's because I haven't finished all of the geography and all of the other elements in here. So cities will tend to be near coastlines, near major rivers, major water sources. At the moment, there's not a lot of that in the middle of this island, hence no cities. Then we go down to towns. So towns are these little gold rounded icons with the signpost on them. And those are for any place that is noteworthy enough to have a name and be known beyond its own kind of reach, its own sphere of influence, but not be a city. And for this campaign, I'm doing something a little bit different in that I don't actually intend to really name any villages. So if we scroll over here, you can see that my village pins, I just have some generic village pins. Those are little rounded gold icons without the signpost, so they keep that same flavor. But I don't intend to populate any of these villages. My intention is very much, or pretty much any of them, very much my intention is that the villages are small little areas. They might not even necessarily have names, but if they do have names, they're certainly not names that are going to make it onto a map. Someone might note on the map that there is a settlement here, people do live here, but we don't know who they are. We've never bothered to ask what this place is called. It's not important enough to mark down on a map, which means that I can use random generators for pretty much any city or any village that my players come across. So if my players were traveling from Basalt to Him, they'd come through this village, and when they got there, I could use a village generator. My default is a site called Kassoon. It generates a name and a demographic and a bunch of other information. I'll just generate a village like that, give it a little flavor for wherever it is based, and then deploy it to the players. Most villages are going to be pretty unremarkable. They might have a tavern. They're probably going to have a couple of tradespeople, and then I think they're the perfect place to deploy kind of your random plot hooks that aren't tied to any more significant locations. Okay, next on the list we'll go with monsters. So we have monsters. These are the shield icon with the skull on them, and they are red, and that denotes a monster or creature either lives here or is currently moving through here. So a lot of them are, if we go up here into the plains between the desert and the Desk Empire, we've got a lot of notes for things like elephants and rhinos, kind of game animals that the players might want to hunt or interact with, or that if the players were traveling through this region, I could look at the map and go, right, okay, I know there are elephants here. I can describe elephants as they're traveling, as you're moving forward on the horizon. As the sun rises, you see the outline of a pride of elephants, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's also monsters. So if we zoom in down here, you can see we have information on the monster that lives in this location. So down here in the region of House Delacroix, we have a Festrog, which is a kind of undead that comes as a result of kind of starvation and decay. It's a level 1 creature. I throw the image of it there, and if I have a hook tied to it, I'll put that in the description here. This is a hidden page. The players can't see it, but I know it's there. So I would know, right, okay, there's going to be a little village here, and it's going to be infested with Festrogs. Traveling merchant can go around most villages, maybe visit them once a year. Exactly. Excellent point. All villages are only for farming, and half of the year they're empty. You know, villages are very much not where most of the action's going to be happening. You know, most of the action's going to be happening on the road, in a city, or in a designated location that the players are going to. Villages are just little way stations for the players to rest in most of the time. So our little red shields here, these are monsters. Wherever possible, I do try and put what level they are, just so I can see at a glance. And then next we have some icons here that actually need to change because they should be a different color. And I'm going to do that right now. So we'll talk about those ones actually. So next we have the pink icons. Pink icons are, pink rounded icons are locations that aren't a settlement, but that are otherwise noteworthy in some way. So that includes things like a castle or a military encampment. It includes things like a tomb or a dungeon, a shrine to a god, anything that is a fixed location that can only exist on that point. Exactly, a landmark. Any landmark that exists as a physical set location, but that doesn't have people living there, that isn't a settlement, or that doesn't qualify for that kind of level of status. It's one beneath town, but not quite as low as village, that actually gets to make it on the map. And as you can see, I say as you can see, because they're washed out, you can't see them super well, but I have been adding quite a lot of landmarks lately. So things like shrines to the different gods, ruins of ancient city, lighthouses for ships to use to navigate, and things like that. Most villages sprang up about 1 day's travel. The inn was typically the first, then the house and the shop. Exactly. So villages will be pretty common, and I don't intend to spend a lot of time naming them. They will be a full-on randomly generated thing. I was actually working on a new spreadsheet today to combine all the spreadsheets, because I work in spreadsheets for my random generation quite a lot. I was working on a new master spreadsheet that includes kind of a place name generator with something like 35,000 different place names. It was bonkers. I found a bunch of different lists online and collated them all. I think it's just shy of 35,000 different real world place names to kind of pull on to get village names. And it's got things like a more complicated NPC generator than the one I use in my DM screen, city generators that will give me lists of shops and things like that. So that's very much something that I use away from the game to kind of world build when I'm just sitting on my own. Next we have these brown kind of diamond shaped icons. Those are my natural places of note. So the Forest of Spikes is a natural location that has something noteworthy about it. Or if we go up here, we have the Shield, which is the massive cliff that forms part of the protection of the Vale. Not every physical location needs a marker, so a lot of the mountain ranges, a lot of the rivers, I've previously named them in my Ash map. They're all named. It never comes up. it only comes up if I say, right, you're traveling to this place that you've never been before and you cross this river, and I name the river, and the players by and large don't care, because that's not what, they're not there for that river, they're just crossing that river. So this time I'm not naming them, they're just going to be natural landforms. They might have a name to their local people, but unless it's relevant, it's not going to get brought up. Natural wonders. Yeah, natural wonders. So any kind of geographical area that isn't a settlement or doesn't have something built on it. So like the Forest of Spikes, the hook there is that supposedly a great evil was buried there, and a tree was planted on their grave, and a silver spike was driven in the tree to kind of ward that grave so that they couldn't rise again. And over the course of generations, every tree in that forest now has iron spikes driven into them, and it's part of the custom. If you travel the road through the Forest of the Spikes, you'll see people peddling the spikes, and you might buy a couple, and as you're riding through, if you see a tree that looks like a good candidate, you'll nail an iron spike into it. Kind of like the padlocks on the bridges in Paris, you know, a little cultural thing like that that isn't actually doing anything, but it helps build the mythos of what happened in this place, and therefore deserves a notation down on the map. Same with the Plane of Sorrow, notable for surrounding the Black Tower, and then the same for the shield over in the Vale. And then next up we have green icons. Green icons are treasure, because green is money, and we've got a couple of different options which you can should be able to see here. So we've got hidden treasures, or any monetary kind of treasure has a little treasure chest icon inside this green kind of chest shaped icon anyway. If it is a weapon, it gets a little sword icon, such as the Black Lance. Or if it is a magical item that isn't a weapon, and if it's a magical item that isn't a weapon, it gets stars. If it's a magical item that is a weapon, it gets a sword. If it's any other kind of treasure, it gets a little treasure chest. And I've been working on dotting them throughout the world and tying them in together. So I think it was last week we worked on a set of armor, so the Celestial armor set. That is located in this mountain range here, but over in this city there is a plot hook for it. So someone would find out about that armor set in this city, and then eventually have to make their way over here to actually find it. And then I think the last but one, so we'll do the more boring one first. So for a lot of the water locations that are named, they don't have a colored icon, they just have the waves. That's just so that I can make any notes about that location on the map, but it's meant to kind of just blend in and not really be seen. Same with any physical location that needs some kind of note, but that it isn't a natural wonder or a landmark or somewhere that is particularly noteworthy. And then finally we have, not finally, I just remembered another, because they're only small and you can't actually see them. So I have a bunch of natural resource markers. These are small circular markers color coded to the general color of the material therefore. So here we have one for coal, which would denote in these their hills there is coal, and there is a little village that has sprung up to mine the coal. Over here we have ones for gold and iron. We have ones for more gold here, copper over here, and it's just a way for me to go, right, okay, this is where a natural resource is. What is the process for that natural resource being harvested? So there's gold and oil up in these hills. So there's a village there. The village then connects to a town. The towns connect to the rest of the world. And then I think actually finally, let me double check that there aren't any others. No, actually finally, the last kind of icon that I use are these little white rounded question marks, and those are points of interest that are kind of small and story related. I call them vignettes. So this one here, traveling merchant. There's a traveling merchant that moves between this city and this town. If the players are moving on that road, they will encounter that traveling merchant. So these are very much focused on what are the players going to encounter when they're traveling. To save me using random encounter tables, because I really dislike random encounter tables, because most of them aren't specific enough to the kind of places that the players are moving through. I want something that really ties the players into the story. So, for example, here we have a little vignette for victims of war. So this region was made independent in a bloody war. This icon is just a cart with some skeletons surrounding it that give an indication that this war did actually happen. Just small little story vignettes to help build out the world. The leopard says, quest point, dragon wants gold, takes over gold mine. Exactly. That's another really handy benefit of tracking the placement of those things. So Bob, let's add the Icarus ossature. And we're gonna Google what that is first, because I'm not super familiar with it. Icarus ossature. That's gonna take an absolute age to load. Do you Book of the Dead? Cool. I can look at the Book of the Dead because I have the Book of the Dead. That will be quicker than waiting for Nethys to load up. Icarus ossature 116. Got a feeling, is it just the skeletal lizard folk? That seems to ring a bell. Oh no, it's much more metal than just the skeletal lizard folk. Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, that's whatever that is, that gets to go in just on how cool it looks alone. So let me see if I can pull up the image there for folks, because it's so cool. Look at that thing. Ah, let's load that up, because that's metal. Look at it. What is it? What's it do? I don't care. It's too cool. So yeah, that can get added somewhere in here. So let's have a quick read about what it is. Surrounded by the spirits of their ancestors, literally they honor the dead. Twilight Guardians, cool. So yeah, this absolutely is going to live somewhere in the forest here, and we will create from template. So we want this template to be a quest of some kind, hidden, Icarus ossature, and that is a level 5 creature. Perfect. And I think that immediately shows kind of the power of this method. We have a region that is filled with lizard folk. We've put a specific lizard folk monster here. Then we can go in, not while we're live, because me just reading things is boring for you to watch, but I can go in, I can read about this thing, I can come up with ideas for plot hooks and stuff, build out a network of pins around that based on that monster. How does it interact with the world? What are some of the plot hooks that we might encounter? Does it have a lair? What's its lair look like? All those kind of things. And it means that when the players are moving through the toll road throughout Icarus on the way to Elotti or on the way to Roses, they can have this encounter that is thematic to the region, helps build out the world because it references kind of the lizard folk beliefs, and we can incorporate that into it. And it is much more interesting than just rolling a table and going, right, okay, you're in woodland, so you get attacked by D4 owlbears, which is something I very much want to avoid at all costs with this campaign, because I want travel to be meaningful in this campaign. I want to be able to put the players down anywhere on the map and go, right, okay, here are 6 or 7 or 8 or however many regions we end up with. Here's a plot hook for each region. Choose where you want to start. Do you want to be Empire Legionnaires on the run, fleeing the failed battle that claimed your emperor? Do you want to be members of the Order of the Silver Gauntlet on your way to Verin Hill for the yearly tournament? Do you want to be members of House Delacroix trying to do something? I want to give them all of these starting options and then put them in the relevant part of the map and then just go have at it. Travel will be a thing. We're going to run travel a little bit more in depth than we have previously, and because we're doing that, we have hundreds of pins on this map to draw from and reference, and any direction you choose, you're going to run into something interesting and specific to the world, not just completely random. Because it really sucks when you're like, oh, we're traveling through this region and this is the 4th time we've rolled bugbears on our random encounter table, or look, another wyvern has come and is plaguing the farms. I want something significantly more bespoke than that, and since I've got a couple months until this campaign should start, we take the time to do it and hopefully have a much more engaging experience at the end. What is the time? We are 25 to midnight. So I figure we'll start the wind down process, maybe have one more look at the Dark Archive and see whether anything jumps out at us. I do actually have a note I did flick through the Dark Archive, and Tomorrow's Feast. Tomorrow's Feast is an adventure. It takes place at sea. I can't remember why I made a note of this. That's why I made a note of this. The Morrowkin. This is a time magic focused monster that makes you complete a loop, puts you in a time loop, and it will kill you and you will start the loop again, and it looks incredible. Like that creature design with all those screaming faces all over its body, and then the no face is always creepy, super cool. So I don't think that I want to use this adventure necessarily, although we could use this adventure. So let's have a quick look at what it is. Does it tell us who this is for? What level adventure is this? Are you going to tell me? I feel like that should be right at the start. No, it doesn't. It doesn't tell me. Right, that's creature 14, so we're going to be plus extreme 10. Right, so we're going to assume level 10. You're on some kind of restaurant vessel, and then bad stuff happens with the Morrowkin. So that's all we need to know, because I will just put a note somewhere on the map that we're going to have Tomorrow's Feast as an adventure available in this region. And I think we're going to do it in the city of Topaz. So we're going to go ahead and create from template. I'm going to choose quest. And we're going to go the Morrowkin, Tomorrow's Feast. The Morrowkin, which is a 14 creature. Hide that page. Create that page. Hide that pin. And then we're just going to make a note to ourselves. Look to the Tomorrow's Feast adventure page. What page is this? Page 190 of the Dark Archive. Dark Archive, page 190. So, if the players happen to be in Topaz at a level that is appropriate for this, I've got an adventure good to go there. One creature I've faced a few times now in nearly every low-level Pathfinder game is the Attic Whisperer. I have an Attic Whisperer. There is an Attic Whisperer somewhere on this map. In the city of Opal, I think. Yes, in the city of Opal, there is an orphanage, the Opal Orphanage, and it was abandoned, and there is an Attic Whisperer that lives in the orphanage and lures people in. Loving how much the Book of the Dead is helping with the monster list. Absolutely. Just the monster lists in general, just the process of opening up a book and going, that's a cool monster, where could that live in my world? Super useful for the world building process. It's been absolutely clutch for being able to populate this map as quickly as we have, like 200 plus pins essentially in like a month, and most of them anyway are either jumping off points that I could use to in an hour or so have an adventure ready to go, or be the starting point for a more significant adventure. So they are kind of grander plot setups, which is really cool. I am really looking forward to running this campaign. It's making it kind of hard to keep running my current campaign because I'm so excited for this one, especially given that I'm kind of fed up of 5th edition and keep running into problems with 5th edition and just really want to play Pathfinder. So it's making it difficult sometimes to continue on with the 5th edition game. A couple of weeks ago, I had a wee little breakdown and went on a big old rant to my players, and they were like, yeah, this doesn't affect us because we're not the GM. But, you know, we can change if you want. And I was like, nah, I want to see the story through. And I don't want to start a Pathfinder campaign to finish the story because it'll be starting at high level, and I really don't want to learn the system through high level play. But 5th edition, Jason says, rocks fall, everyone dies. Now about that dual cities game. Yeah, exactly. So 60% prepared and 40% on the fly. Probably not even that. I mean, all of this prep, even though we've got, 200 plus points of interest on this map now, that's still a tiny amount of actual prep compared to, running an adventure. It's really more just like an evocative skeleton to build on. So having all of these markers and all of these points to be able to point me in the direction of more substantial notes is really useful, so that when it comes time to make an actual session, I don't have to start with a blank canvas. I don't have to stare at the blank page. I have an idea. And for me, that's always the point that takes the longest, moving from the blank page to having something. So if I can get a whole bunch of somethings done ahead of time, then the actual bulk of the prep, super easy. I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. This city has an attic whisperer. It lives in an orphanage. It is luring people into the orphanage. That's a whole adventure right there. I just need to find a couple of maps, name like 3 NPCs, and boom, we've got an evening of play from one monster. Frog in my throat. A transfigured thaumaturge frog in my throat. Callie says, I think this map needs tooth fairies. One of my players would definitely agree with that. Absolutely. He's currently playing a tooth fairy. Tooth fairy, absolutely great candidate for the unclaimed lands somewhere. All that kind of real deep fey stuff in the unclaimed lands. Perfect place for it. We are getting close to midnight now, so we'll do what we do every week and have kind of 15-20 minutes of wind down where you can throw any questions you have in the chat, and we'll wind towards the end of the evening. Bob says it can be a total social encounter if you play it right, though it did change my alignment. Absolutely. Ideally, you want most encounters to be possible to resolve socially. It's not always the case, and sometimes players see a monster and they go full on Hulk and they're like, scary monster, and just throw themselves at it. But it's nice when they do a little bit of talking. So if you have any questions about this world, my process to world building, my process to running games or playing games, or any questions like that, throw them down in the chat and we'll kind of wind down here for the next sort of 15 minutes. Crazy plot idea, a secret group of fairies whose only goal is to get more cookies. Playing with that whimsical fae element can be really fun. I tend to default more to the dark fae, but playing with the whimsy element can be really fun. My nose has got so stuffy. Oh my. I'm going to mute myself so I can cough. There we go. That completely took my brain away. You're planning on GMing a Pathfinder 2nd edition game soon. If instead you're going to be a player in the upcoming Pathfinder 2nd edition, You can tell it's at the end of the night because my ability to speak has gone. What class or character concepts would you want to try out first? 100% the Thaumaturge. Absolutely. There is no other option. The Thaumaturge is the coolest class. The core concept of it being this other kind of... Words are hard. The core concept of it being an occultist monster hunter that has these relics, these occult or fantastic or religious relics, and this like bag of occult tricks that they can pull from. So cool. I absolutely no other option. If I was to be given the option to play Pathfinder 2nd edition tomorrow, it would be the Thaumaturge. Just let me live my Van Helsing dreams. I want to be Hugh Jackman, 2004 Hugh Jackman, or 2004 Kate Beckinsale. I'll settle for either. So I want to make my own map for a region and then later expand on it to make a map for my homebrew world. But how to start with a landmass? Any tips for approaching it? Honestly, Lord Catgret, I would say both Wonderdraft and Incarnate have options for automatically generating landmasses. That is probably what I would do if I was starting from scratch and had no vision for what I want. If I had no preconceived notion, I'd just auto-generate until I got something that looks cool, and then I'd refine it a little bit. And through the process of making the map, placing the mountains, placing the rivers, your maps start to grow and change anyway as you build those specific pieces. So just for me, the hardest part is getting a coastline, because you accidentally make Australia and Austria on top of each other, which is what I did in my how to transfer hand-drawn maps into Wonderdraft. I hand drew a map, and it was Australia and Austria on top of each other somehow. But moving to like a digital platform, their random generation for continents and for landforms and coastlines can be really good. Sometimes you have to play around with it a little bit, generate them a couple times. But I would start there and then go from there and develop. So like with the Jewel Cities, originally this region down here, this lower region, was just one solid coastline, and in general solid coastlines look really boring, so I added in all of these inlets to represent that ancient glacial movement that has eroded into these almost like fjords, and that region of the coastline looks significantly more interesting. Or the same with pulling in like bays and inlets connecting up lakes, or where you place your rivers. Like, so this river here is the widest river in the Jewel Cities, purely because I drew it with one of the wider tools, and then by the time I realized that it was too wide, I couldn't undo it, so I incorporated it into the lore of the world. I was like, right, okay, this is the widest river in the region, and it has a really important strategic fording point on it, and for several points of the year the river water raises and this region becomes inaccessible except for at one crossing point. So that one crossing point, Hark's Ford, super important military location. Look at my ancient silver spoon, Mr. Werewolf. Exactly, that's what I want from the Thaumaturge. I want to approach a situation and then be like, don't worry guys, I've got this. I've got some fingernails from a hag, or I've got some silver shavings that I took from the bottom of some ornate skull, or hey look, I've got the pinky finger of a saint. It's so much role-playing potential there. For my world, I have very simplistic maps, and I want to make them more realistic, so I just randomly generated a continent in Wonderdraft and slightly tweaked it to make a continent more crescent-shaped, like I wanted, and less blob-shaped. Yeah, the random generation tools can be super useful. Created a coast-to-coast river for my map based on the locks, so I do know it can exist. Yeah, coast-to-coast rivers can exist. They tend to be called straits, I believe. So like, you could make the argument that the cut is a river. I mean, I wouldn't, but I'm sure someone could. You know, if you zoomed this map out to the world scale, that would look proportionally like a river that starts in this big mountain chain and then kind of goes coast to coast. Callie, John Constantine, exactly. I want Constantine, I want Van Helsing, I want to be Buffy. All of those tropes are just baked into the Thaumaturge. They get some really cool options. So they get implements to kind of manifest their power through. You get 3 of them over time. You start with 1 and you get a second and third, and the options for them are really cool. So let's see if I can find them. So you've got an amulet, a bell, a chalice, a lantern, a mirror, and the regalia, and a tome, and a wand, and a weapon. You've got a whole bunch of them. I really like the regalia because it could be a standard, and I like the idea of being part of a military unit or a military company, a unit of soldiers, and having the company standard be my regalia and drawing power from that. And then, you know, the amulet and all of the weird bones of monsters and stuff like that, but super cool. It'll function like a river when it comes to geopolitics, but it's more of a strait. Yeah. Elven Dhampir Thaumaturge. A Dhampir Thaumaturge would be super cool because you get to play into that connection to the vampire and to the occult and the undead and the perceived as potentially more societally evil whilst being kind of that force for good. Just Thaumaturges are just so cool. As soon as I got done reading the bulk of the Blade, another great example. And they're really good martial characters as well. Like, they have really decent martial proficiencies. So they get trained in simpler martial weapons. They get light and medium armor. They get they get expert in fortitude. You know, they're not slouches when it comes to physical combat. So you could totally make Blade. Use the weapon as their implement, as their first implement for Blade's sword, and then just deck them out in stakes. Thaumaturge with a noble background in the regalia implement. Their family was killed off by some supernatural baddie, but they survived and fled, and they're looking to get revenge. Perfect. Just, they're so cool. I pretty much as soon as I got done reading the bulk of the class, I had a live stream that I did with Mark and Stephen from Roll for Combat, and Mark is one of the designers at Paizo for Pathfinder 2, and he wrote the Thaumaturge. So I was just like, Mark, the Thaumaturge is so good. And I just talked to him for like 15 minutes about the Thaumaturge before the stream, and I was like, I love it so much. Thank you for making it so cool. But yeah, so that is what I would play if I was going to be a player in a Pathfinder game. Would 100% be a Thaumaturge. In 5th edition, I occasionally play some one-shots, and I have a Wild Magic Fire Ganassi Barbarian who I've been playing through all these one-shots and kind of built the separate elements of those one-shots into her background. So she's kind of an American Chavez style character. She wild magics through dimensions, which is why she's in all these different people's games. The Jewel Cities kind of remind me a bit of the Hanse Cities here in Germany. Ooh, I am not familiar with the Hanse Cities. That could be a source of inspiration for me to have a look at. And yeah, Mark wrote Thaumaturge. Curious as how Psionic will work as a class. I've not had a look at the Psychic yet. I read through the Thaumaturge because I'd read the playtest material for Thaumaturge and really enjoyed that. So as soon as I got my PDF of Dark Archive, I pretty much opened it, read the first couple pages of Thaumaturge, and I was like, I'll save this and do some of this on stream. So closed it down reluctantly. I skimmed a little through it, but I haven't read through all of it yet because I wanted to wait and get kind of first impressions of some of the elements to incorporate into the Jewel Cities here on stream, but I'll probably dig through it a little bit this week. One of the downsides of being in the UK is pretty much no one that does kind of press release material sends stuff to the UK, so I'm very fortunate that I get the PDF material from Paizo, which is awesome. But because I'm in the UK, they don't send out the physical books, and I love physical books. Same with D&D. Like, I've got a press account on D&D Beyond, so I get the digital stuff, but no one at Hasbro will return my calls about getting physical books. And they're certainly not going to return them now that I've started bitching about 5th edition. But before that, you know, no one ever responded to me. That's not why I'm switching to Pathfinder, mostly. What time are we on? We're about 5 minutes away from midnight, so we're going to wind down. Throw any last questions you've got in the chat while I do my kind of wrapping up spiel. So if this is your first time here and you aren't already, please do consider hitting the follow button. I can't see whether we have hit the goal for that or not because my eyesight isn't good enough. We are one away from our 215 follower goal. So if any one of you that's watching this isn't following already, go ahead and click that so we can hit that goal and update that goal for the next stream. If you enjoy this, I can't speak, words are hard, it's like nearly midnight. There we go. If you enjoy this, I do this every Sunday night at 10 o'clock UK time. That's about 5 o'clock in the evening Eastern US time. I also make videos over on YouTube. You'll find a bunch of stuff there relating to world building. I documented the process for my previous campaign, the City-States of Ashk. I have a whole playlist of how I went through that, how I made the gods and the different cities, that entire process. As well as a bunch of GM videos. I've started making Pathfinder videos. There's tips for all manner of stuff there. I also have a Discord where you can get together with a bunch of other RPG lovers and talk all things RPG. You'll find a link to that in the chat as well. And then if you want to use what I've been using in this, the app that I've been using all evening is called Legend Keeper. I just released a video on that on Friday, and the map is made with Incarnate, and I also do some maps in Wonderdraft and Dungeon Draft. I've got a whole bunch of videos on them on the channel as well. And then finally, if you want to help support me and keep the lights on and keep the bills paid, I do this full time and I make most of my money through Patreon. I have a monthly magazine called SIDEQUEST. It's full of 5th edition compatible material, and it's intended to be like the magazines of old, to help inspire you and get you excited to add things to your game. There's stuff in there for players, stuff in there for GMs, and you can find that at the link that I've just dropped into the chat now. One unbroken spiel. Oh yeah, because we can name an NPC. Is it possible to send ideas for how they can look or what they excel at as their natural skill, as long as it's not complicated? Absolutely. If you've got more information beyond just their name, absolutely throw it into the little chat box that comes up when you redeem that channel point reward. Sometimes there may be cases where it doesn't fit, but for the most part, certainly at this stage of the world building, pretty much any suggestion should be fine. Let me go ahead and see whether we do have any channel rewards that need to be redeemed before the end of the stream here. We have one monster lair, which is the Erexis. We've done that, and that is all of them. Excellent. Well, it is just about midnight, so I'm going to call it there. I hope that you've all had a lovely time and you found this useful and inspiring, and it's giving you some ideas for your own games. If you aren't following, make sure to hit the follow button, and there's a whole bunch of links in the about section as well to everywhere else on the internet. I will be doing this again next Sunday, same bat time, same bat channel, but until next time, happy gaming.